I've seen too many ladies fumble their relationship with affluent and provider gentlemen, making these basic middle class and lower class mistakes. And even some femininity gurus like Lisa Glamour make some of these mistakes. Real Masani, how do you do? I will of course go into Lisa Glamour's video on feminine communication, and I'll also be talking about common middle class and lower class mistakes ladies make when dating a provider, and what can you do to communicate in an elite manner. I will be divulging the secrets of elite ladies and how we stay on top, as many ladies who are much prettier than us fumble the bag because of basic and common communication mistakes. So, Lisa Glamour talks in her video about communication that there is light and dark feminine. So this is the first mistake. Although she does have correct points, which I will go into, that come from psychology. At the same time, no, we have elite feminine communication, or royal communication, regal communication. And light feminine is being a pick-me doormat. It does not work. Dark feminine communication is being Machiavellian or being a sociopath, or too much on the dark triad, assuming affluent men with far more experience than you and twice your age are idiots. I hate to inform you, but they're not. Many ladies hate my content, write terrible reviews saying, I'm wrong, I'm a horrible person, because I don't confirm their bias and refuse to coddle them and entertain their opinion that, in my life experience, is wrong. Affluent gentlemen are not stupid, and in this economy, providers are not idiots. So, in the past, the average Joe was able to be a provider, and this is why the middle and lower class advice given to you by your mothers no longer works, because those factory jobs are now in China, and elite gentlemen require a different form of communication. Maybe some of these communication tricks will work with everyone. However, if you fumble with an average Joe or with a Dusty, right? They're so lucky that you even picked them. So you make a mistake or two or three or five, many of them will still stay with you. However, when you're with an affluent gentleman, they have a rotation of ladies usually. And if you fumble, you get replaced the same day. In the 1980s, half of ladies were housewives, and factory jobs were not in China, but in Western countries, right? So the economy was different, where an average gentleman could be a provider. In this economy, being a provider is something special, few men can do, and therefore, providers today are special. They're often upper middle class and above, and they have options and many ladies chasing them. Maybe not as much as billionaires, but they do have far more options than middle class average Joe did in the 1950s or 1980s. Another major difference is that women work and there is the pill. So that's another reason why your grandmama's advice does not work. Because in the 1950s, women still had to be hypergamous, even though there was a lot of romantic propaganda. Ladies didn't take it that seriously. And first, they would pick someone who's the best father material. Today they go for romance in all seriousness, which means that most women listen to Taylor Swift or live Taylor Swift, right? That's why she's so popular. And most of them are romantic and they friend zone the excellent, decent provider gentleman and chase the terrible jerk, broke, dusty loser, which is why there is the red pill. I do wish red pill did not exist. However, we cannot blame gentlemen for red pill. Gentlemen respond to what the majority of women do and behave. If most of women fill Taylor Swift concerts and are romantics, and thus reward poor, broke, dusty loser, bad boy behavior, we can only expect gentlemen to not be gentlemen with us in the beginning and to test and see, are we truly a hypergamous traditional lady? Or are we a romantic who friend zones decent gentlemen like our grandpas and rewards hideous, broke, dusty losers who give emotional thrills and nothing else, and turn ladies into single mothers? So when you go on a date in the 21st century, it's not like Victorian England. And at the same time, elite ladies around the world are assertive queens, right? And there is where Lisa Glamour goes wrong. She, says there's dark feminine and light feminine, when really you should be in your regal elite feminine. So on dates, gentlemen will be testing you in the beginning, and you should be assertive and demonstrate status and higher value, both with confidence, knowing your worth, and also being unbothered and like a spoiled Persian cat, that you have certain expectations, and if they're not met, there'll be somebody else who meets them. Even if there isn't, even if you don't have a rotation, act like you do. That is so important. Absolutely don't have one-itis. Don't focus on one. Don't fall in love with one gentleman, because providers will disappoint you in the beginning. Very often, most providers, my husband included, had a rotation. And that is my first point, right? You should also have a rotation and not be fixated. As a Miss Universe finalist, while I didn't have a rotation per se, I had so many men writing to me, right? So many gentlemen calling me, sending me messages, so on, so forth. I had far more gentlemen than I knew what to do with. So if one annoyed me, I got rid of him and replaced him within the hour. So that is what you mimic. With the rotation, you mimic being a popular lady, like myself when I was single. As a Miss Universe finalist, if one gentleman annoyed me, I replaced him immediately. So it was so funny when gentlemen, they were rules boys and they tried to wait a few days before calling me back. I wouldn't remember who that was. And I already had a date and a replacement. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Once I showed up, I had a date, and then he didn't call me back for 3 days, and I forgot who it was. If you don't call me back, write to me within 24 hours after a date, I wouldn't know who you are. So 3 days later, I had a date in front of his office with someone else, and he wrote, I am sorry, I don't remember it. And he said, 3 days later, I'm like, how do you expect me, as a beauty queen, to remember all of your names? You have to write to me within 24 hours, so at least I remember who you are. And then after a while he told me, like, oh, yes. Well, yeah, you know what I forgot, right? So this is who you have to mimic, okay? You have to mimic this beauty queen energy, that there are too many gentlemen and too little time. And the way to do it is to have a rotation. A major difference between elite and provided gentlemen versus the middle class today is just how common rotations are, right? In the elite. Whereas in the middle class, boyfriend, girlfriend is a partner is a common arrangement, and ladies are more likely to be mistaken that such a relationship actually means something when of course it doesn't, because there's no serious commitment. There's no diamond engagement ring. There's no really investment from the ring. There is no wedding date, so it doesn't mean anything. However, middle class ladies are more likely to maintain the illusion that boyfriend girlfriend somehow means something, because average Joes who split the bill have no other options, right? I mean, they're lucky that they're with you who's their age, right? When you could be, if you're pretty, you could be with someone twice their age who could provide your family a decent lifestyle. So you're better off dating older, and he's so lucky that there is a lady who'll split the bills with him. Sometimes affluent or provided gentlemen will invite ladies they're dating consecutively all together at the same party in their mansion, for example. So you go to his birthday party, and you are so happy to receive the invite, right? And then you find out there are 3 other ladies who he has been dating at the same time. Oh, how embarrassing, right? It happened to one of my ladies, actually. So, and there's nothing wrong with this. Because if he didn't say you are exclusive and he's exclusive and had the talk that you're exclusive, then you're not exclusive. Then you must assume you're not, right? And one of my ladies had this happen to her. So she was going out with this gentleman, and they had 3 beautiful dates, and she thought, and she kissed him on one of the dates, that she thought it was going somewhere, that, they kissed each other. They weren't physically intimate yet, but they kissed, right? So she thought they were an item. And then she opened the papers, and what did she see? Right in the society column, where the galas were, he was on a gala date with another lady. She was in such a shock. She was infuriated, and she asked around and said, yes, he's dating her and maybe someone else in the 3rd one. He's not exclusive. He has a rotation. That's normal. What's wrong with her? Did he ever give her the talk that she was exclusive? So when she asked around, people were surprised that she was upset, because said, did you have the talk that you were exclusive? Because no one was under the impression that he had an exclusive partner yet. She was upset. So she did the wrong thing, right? So what she did is she got her gay friend involved. She was so upset. She didn't write to me. She did this first, right? And she and her gay friend sat down, and then they went to a gala, and they took photos, and he was cuddling her and so on. So it looked like she was on a date with someone else. And then she posted it on Facebook, and he blocked her. She was in shock. So then she wrote to me and told me, Maria, how unfair it is. I said, why are you exclusive? She said, you sound like everyone else. You sound like all of them. I said, yeah, that's normal. So you're not exclusive, and then you were all over some other gentleman, right? I know it's unfair, but you know, it's misogynist at the top because they can afford to be, right? So if you are a gentleman and you date several ladies, you're a stud. But if you are a lady dating several gentlemen, posting your rotational line, you're a floozy. Because he assumes that you were intimate with this person when it is just your gay friend who dressed up and cosplayed a heterosexual for the evening. So they say a master key unlocks many locks and thus is an excellent key. However, a lock that is unlocked by any key is a shoddy lock. I know it sounds misogynist, however, you know, it is a gentleman's dating market at the top when they provide for you. That's another thing you should note. And the reason feminism existed is that it is a ladies' dating market at the bottom where you split the bill 50-50. Where you split the bill 50-50, right? And, you know, you don't expect gentlemen to add value to you. That's where you have the say. But in exchange, no one gives you anything of value, right? For example, commitment, provision, protection. You know, all of those characteristics of masculinity add value in the dating market, right? So when a gentleman adds value, what do we mean by this? We mean that, you know, basic economics, that there is a higher demand, or lots of women want this, right? There is a high demand, but there are fewer gentlemen who add the most value. So a gentleman who adds the most value, imagine a prince, okay, high status, who is a billionaire, who is young and handsome, okay, who's physically fit, attractive, and treats you like a princess. The whole world will want him. Every pick-me on the planet would have sent her nudes to him already and debased herself in hopes of getting his attention. Gentlemen at the very top are the most spoiled, and so spoiled they're not even worth your time because pick-me's throw themselves at them. That's why they are very different than lower class gentlemen who are lucky to get a date because they have nothing to offer but the struggle life in today's economy. So someone who can be an excellent father for your children can be an excellent father for anyone's children. So all the ladies are competing for a small pool of gentlemen, and I teach you how to be competitive, not only as a stylist but as a relationship coach, being half Slavic and half Arab, and those backgrounds are extremely competitive for marrying up. So one thing I learned is all the feminist egalitarian things, they work for splitting the bill 50-50, for doing all the housework and expected to spend hours maintaining your face routine, maintaining your femininity, going to the gym, and then working like a gentleman on top of all your feminine labor. Plus, children are the same as 3.5 jobs, and you'll be expected to do most of the childcare as well. So you'll be doing 70% of the labor in a relationship in exchange for having a say and having no misogyny. So feminism only applies to 50-50 relationships. It does not apply when the gentleman is paying your bills. If he's paying your bills, he has a say. If he's paying your bills, that is the true 50-50 in real life, right? Because of all the labor you put in, and he pays for your labor, whether it's looking attractive, whether it's cooking, whether it's doing anything domestic, right? Even if you have a maid, listening to him, giving your feminine energy, right? All of this is feminine labor. So if you do the feminine half and he does the masculine half, that's true equality. But because you're not paying, he has the say. So that's an unfortunate dilemma we ladies have. So the problem is feminism and progressive values only take you so far. And survival values, for example, of Arab, Eastern European, Asian ladies is what gets you to the top. If you noticed, Melania, Usha, Vance, right? Those ladies, they are not your typical white progressive feminist. In fact, those ladies don't last at the top. Unless, of course, they're being married for their connections, where it's also acceptable for their husband to have an affair and have a sugar baby. So, elite and provider gentlemen are used to great service. I do believe if you want to get ahead in life, you should go and have a coffee, tea, or hot chocolate at a 5-star hotel. And this way, you will have an experience of the atmosphere and the vibes and what it's like. You will notice you'll have excellent service, right? And that is what elite gentlemen are used to. They are used to having excellent service because people respect them for their money. If you provide value, it's logical to expect people to reciprocate value. So if a gentleman is paying for your date, he expects you to provide value. Now, many ladies are silly and they think it's Brost deduction, right? To go out on a date. They think that, if he's paying for you, you should put out. No. What, do you think ladies of the night will, accept a meal as payment? Of course not. They expect so much more money for their services, right? Than a meal at a 5-star restaurant costs, right? So, dating is not the same as saxophone work. So, what is he paying for? He is paying for your personal skills in addition to your beauty, your elegance, your grooming, and your charm. So if an elite gentleman annoys you, you cannot behave like you are with your 50-50 lover. You cannot nag him, yell at him and say, I don't like this, I don't like that. And that's something Lisa Glamour talks about correctly. That, feminine ladies communicate in a feminine manner. You cannot go and openly criticize someone who's paying for your dinner, even though you might want to choke him. At the same time, the solution is absolutely not to be a pick-me, which seems to be what Lisa Glamour is going for. And then she says, no, then you go into dark feminine. That's Machiavellianism. That also doesn't work. So you should not be a doormat. You should be very firm. But at the same time, you shouldn't be nagging, criticizing, and screaming. So how does it work? What is the secret of elite ladies? It's assertiveness. So, how do we do it? So, a gentleman on a date, at first he will want to know, are you a romantic pick-me, doormat loser, or are you a queen? So they will often start with a neg. And a neg is just to push you down and see if you audition for the neg or not. For example, what do you bring to the table for me to date you? An elite lady would say, I bring Uber to the table and leave. And then that's wife material. Then he'll chase you. So what gentlemen do is called a shoot test with an I. SHT, right? And before the T, it's an I. A do-do test.
Looking to find and marry a rich man just so you can live the soft life is probably the dumbest shit I've ever heard, especially if you do not make your own money and you're not set on your own career path. Dating rich men so that you can put yourself on the trajectory of your own career path is a different story. Dating rich men so those rich men can pay for your medical school or so they can fund your business is a different story. But not having anything going for yourself and wanting to find a rich guy so you can just not do shit with your life and you can just go to Erewhon and go to Pilates is stupid. That's a dumb idea. Also, if you're the kind of person who's afraid to tell your waiter that your order was wrong, you're not cut out for dating or marrying a rich man. If you think that you're going to outsmart a man who has made millions and millions of dollars, you are in over your head. The women who date and marry rich men are smart women. They understand how men work. If you think this is going to be some kind of fairy tale, that's not the way it's going to go down. You have to be smart. You have to understand what the fuck it is at all times. If you are a pushover, if you are a people pleaser, this is not the route you need to go in life. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm not saying that you can't find a rich man to date you or even to marry you. But if you are a people pleaser or you're a pushover, you're going to be working for every fucking penny. I can promise you that. I think I cannot tell you how many beautiful women I know who cannot hack it. They cannot hack it. They cannot hack dating a rich man, keeping a rich man, or marrying a rich man. Yes, you do need to be beautiful, and yes, being beautiful helps, but you also have to be smart.
So I prefer to call it a rubbish test, where they will throw some rubbish and see if you're silly enough to pick it up. So an example, the first neg, is nice nails, are they real? When they neg you, you can always say, nice neg, is it real? Examples of negs, right? They want to test your boundaries and how firm they are. Is, I like you, now change, right? That's one of the most common varieties. So, for example, if I'm on a date, I'll say, you would look so lovely as a blonde, right? However, he would go on a date with a blonde and tell her, you would look so lovely as a brunette, right? If he's on a date with you already, then he likes you as you are, because gentlemen are to be trusted with actions, not words. If he's on a date with you, you are enough. If he says otherwise, he's lying, or he wouldn't be on a date with you, because a provided gentleman has options. So even what do you bring to the table? Well, if you are sitting there, you are already bringing value to the table. So, of course, we should state our expectations in the beginning, because that's what high value people do. That's another elite lady secret, that we're confident, right? And we state what we want from the beginning, right? We state we are a traditional lady, we're looking for marriage, because if you don't, you show your pick-me that you're a loser, right? So you say what you want in the beginning. You're a traditional lady, you are looking for marriage, right? So then he will test this boundary, which is normal, and then he will say, he prefers feminists, right? And then you're like, well, go find yourself a feminist. And then he will say, what? I don't mind the traditional thing either, let's see how it goes. That's how you do it. You don't get outraged, you don't scream, you don't yell, you state what you want. So one of my ladies had a rotation, which is smart. And then one of her gentlemen wanted her to give up the rotation, so he proposed. Okay? And she went to dinner with his mother, right? And his mother started to ask her, basically on his behalf, so what are your plans? If you're finishing university and then you want to get married, so what job would you have when you get married? And she said, well, of course, I'll be a homemaker, right? Because that whole time, her date, when she was dating him, was saying how traditional he was and how he also wanted a housewife, he wanted all the same things. So for her, it was such a surprise, right? And actually, it's normal for if after a month of dating, a gentleman can change his tune, or after getting engaged, for example, etc. They can test you. Especially after sleeping with you, they will test you, if they don't dump you already. So his mother started to counter signal. So she started to ask her, so what will you be doing after you graduate? And she said, well, I'll be staying at home. She says, well, I'm sure you'll be bored. She's like, no, I'll be a homemaker. We'll have children, so I'll stay home with the children. And she said, well, that makes sense. Children can be a handful as toddlers, but then eventually they'll go back to school. So when the children are in school, what will you be doing for a living? She said, well, I'll be volunteering perhaps at a museum or some charity board, the Parent-Teacher Association perhaps. She said, no, I mean for pay, what would you be doing for a living? At this point, I told her, you should have gotten up, left and dumped him, and said our engagement is over. So that's how he tested her, by counter-signaling. You should show you're ready to walk. That means you're elite and wife material. My lady, instead, she was so happy that someone affluent was engaged to her, so she kept arguing, and then that does not work. Eventually he kept, playing games, and she had to dump him. So I prefer to call it a rubbish test, where they will throw some rubbish and see if you're silly enough to pick it up. So an example, the first neg, is nice nails, are they real? When they neg you, you can always say, nice neg, is it real? Examples of negs, right? They want to test your boundaries and how firm they are, is I like you, now change, right? That's one of the most common varieties. So, for example, if I'm on a date, I'll say, you would look so lovely as a blonde, right? However, he would go on a date with a blonde and tell her, you would look so lovely as a brunette, right? If he's on a date with you already, then he likes you as you are. Because gentlemen are to be trusted with actions, not words. If he's on a date with you, you are enough. If he says otherwise, he's lying, or he wouldn't be on a date with you, because a provider gentleman has options. So even what do you bring to the table? Well, if you are sitting there, you are already bringing value to the table. So, of course, we should state our expectations in the beginning, because that's what high value people do. That's another elite lady secret, that we're confident, right? And we state what we want from the beginning, right? We state we are a traditional lady, we're looking for marriage, Because if you don't, you show your pick me that you're a loser, right? So you say what you want in the beginning. You're a traditional lady, you're all looking for marriage, right? So then he will test this boundary, which is normal. And then he will say, he prefers feminists, right? And then you're like, well, go find yourself a feminist. And then he will say, you know what? I don't mind the traditional thing either. Let's see how it goes. That's how you do it. You don't get outraged, you don't scream, you don't yell. You state what you want. So one of my ladies had a rotation, which is smart. And then one of her gentlemen wanted her to give up the rotation, so he proposed. Okay? And she went to dinner with his mother, right? And his mother started to ask her, basically on his behalf, so what are your plans? If you're finishing university and then you want to get married, so what job would you have when you get married? And she said, well, of course, I'll be a homemaker, right? Because that whole time, her date, when she was dating him, was saying how traditional he was and how he also wanted a housewife, he wanted all the same things. So for her, it was such a surprise, right? And actually, it's normal for if after a month of dating, a gentleman can change his tune, or after getting engaged, for example, etc. They can test you. Especially after sleeping with you, they will test you, if they don't dump you already. So his mother started to counter signal. So she started to ask her, so what will you be doing after you graduate? And she said, well, I'll be staying at home. She says, well, I'm sure you'll be bored. She's like, no, I'll be a homemaker. We'll have children, so I'll stay home with the children. And she said, well, that makes sense. Children can be a handful as toddlers, but then eventually they'll go back to school. So when the children are in school, what will you be doing for a living? She said, well, I'll be volunteering perhaps at a museum or some charity board, the Parent-Teacher Association perhaps. She said, no, I mean for pay, what would you be doing for a living? At this point, I told her, you should have gotten up, left and dumped him, and said our engagement is over. So that's how he tested her, by counter-signaling. You should show you're ready to walk. That means you're elite and wife material. My lady, instead, she was so happy that someone affluent was engaged to her, so she kept arguing, and then that does not work. Eventually, he kept, playing games, and she had to dump him. In the 21st century, thanks to romantic ladies looking for a thrill, sadly, we have to deal with negs and gentlemen testing our boundaries, which is something that Lisa Glamour does not talk about. When she does, she say, oh, it's the dark feminine. No, we are in our regal feminine. So what do negs look like? So we have backhanded compliments, beautiful makeup, Cleopatra, going for maximalism perhaps. Oh, what a beautiful dress. It reminds me of my childhood when I went to the circus and saw my first clown. So many bright colors, right? So you see, when something like this happens on a date, what do? You leave, right? And you have him chase you, right? You leave. You just get up and leave. If he says, what's wrong? You must be positive. Where Lisa Glamour goes wrong is she says that you should say you feel this you feel bad. That already looks bothered. You have to look unbothered, right? And you just, you know what? I prefer when gentlemen make me feel at ease and appreciated. I don't feel appreciated when you refer to my style as a circus clown, right? If you prefer ladies who wear beige and minimalism, then date ladies who wear beige and minimalism. I like you, and now change is called a neg, and I don't date gentlemen who neg. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not a thrill seeker. I'm a traditional lady. This should not be mistaken for auditioning. You do have to let him chase you by withdrawing. Now, some psychologists will say, oh, it's toxic. No, what's toxic is mind reading. And what you do is, by withdrawing, he knows there's something wrong. Then that sets him in his masculine to chase you and ask, what's wrong? And that's when you should be calm, right? Lisa Glamour says you should be calm. Yes, you should definitely take 3 deep breaths. And I recommend box breathing, right? So you breathe out 1, 2, 3, hold your breath 1, 2, 3, breathe in 1, 2, 3, and do it 3 times. I also recommend, if that's a bit difficult, then just take a couple deep breaths and count 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. You know, when you're in your rational doing mathematical equations in your head, after you had a couple deep breaths, you will be much calmer. So it's important to talk in a way that you're used to good treatment. So anything that makes you feel uncomfortable is a neg. And they did intend it that way, because they'll be otherwise trying hard to please you on a date. So if they're not trying hard to please you, then they're testing you on purpose to see, are you a pick-me or are you wife material? So what are different types of negs? One neg is a comparison. So ladies that I've dated like splitting the bill 50-50. That's a neg. My response? Then why you're out with me? The same gentleman will go out on a date with a 50-50 lady and say, ladies that I date typically want to be a traditional homemaker. What's wrong with you? Why are you such a feminist? Social justice warrior. Very common neg, as I said earlier, is I like you, now change. An example of that is unsolicited advice. So to change your hair color, right, to tell me that he prefers blondes. If he did prefer blondes, he would go on a date with a blonde, wouldn't ask me out. So with this unsolicited advice, if someone tells me, you would look better as a blonde, I would say, and I prefer gentlemen who admire and adore me the way I am. And then I would walk away and ghost him until he apologizes several times. See, this is how an assertive queen asserts her boundary. Another thing you can do. Oh, I prefer blondes. You look so much better as a blonde. I can say, nice neg, is it real? You know what? I prefer gentlemen who admire me the way I am. Ciao, bambino. And then I would get up and walk. So you do have to practice getting up in the middle of a date and walking away. And maybe you have been taught by your parents how to be a doormat, to be nice, to be a good girl. And you have to be a little bad. So you have to practice with a friend. And write down, so you don't hurt each other, write down some nags, wrap them up, throw them in a bow. And your friend reads a nag to you in the middle of a date, and you get up. You should even practice in a restaurant where she says something positive, a comment, and then slips in one of the nags, and you simply get up and leave to the ladies' room, right? And you should practice doing this together. If you feel uncomfortable, 99% it's a neg, because he'll be trying to make you feel comfortable as much as possible. And he will be trying his best. So the moment he's not trying his best to make you happy, it's usually deliberate to see if you have boundaries and how strong those are. So why are boundaries so important? Most gentlemen who are successful have pick-me trauma, as in they have dated a pick-me-sha who was quiet, pleasant, and then she blew up, broke up, and broke their heart, and dragged their heart and life, and traumatized them utterly. After this, gentlemen don't want a pick-me, and do even prefer a nag or a masculina, because you pay too heavy of a toll. Elite gentlemen or providers would have some dating experience and would have experienced the pick-me and have pick-me trauma. So that's why they want to test, are you a pick-me? If they push your boundaries, would you say no? And it's a win-win. If you are a pick-me, then you can put out and they can pump and dump you. If you're wife material, that also works. And who really likes pick-me's and actually stays with them? Those are violent men, abusers, sociopaths, narcissists. So be careful being too nice. Know what your self-interest is. Go in thinking with your self-interest. And don't try to be liked. Rather, think that gentlemen are putting a show for you, and it's up to you to accept or turn them down. As a feminine lady, you should not be auditioning for gentlemen that's masculine. They should be courting you and auditioning for you, obviously. I mean, him paying for your restaurant, right? Inviting you out. He's auditioning to be your suitor. And if he's afraid that someone else will take you away, then he proposes and becomes your spouse. Another neg to try to get ladies to audition is comparison. Well, all the ladies I've dated before except 50-50. You see? If you see the counter signaling, right? Counter signaling is not a neg. So you say that you are a traditional lady, right? So a neg is so. Most of the ladies that I've been with except 50-50, what's wrong with you, right? And what you're supposed to say, then date ladies who accept 50-50. Or most ladies I've dated, are intimate on the third date, and this is date 5, and you're Bridget the Frigid. Say, well then date ladies like that, right? If you date the ladies you appreciate, what do I have to do with that? Why should I care? Why should I care is one of the most important lines of being unbothered. Very often, if they want to push intimacy, they'll try to put you down. So they'll say, oh, most normal ladies that I've dated have been intimate by the third date. This is date 5. You would say, I told you from the beginning, I'm a traditional lady. And you know from the beginning that I'm a traditional lady, and I told you that I wait until engagement. If you want someone like the ladies you've dated, then go date them. What do I have to do with it? Why should I care? And then walk out, right? That's the important thing, right? So one of the biggest problems, like with lower class communication, you see people yelling and screaming a lot, right? So if a gentleman is not doing what you want, very often ladies will start complaining, and Lisa Glamour correctly says, you never do this, you never do that, is wrong, right? So if they're inconsistent, meet inconsistency with unavailability. If your gentleman always flies in last minute and expects you to see him, what should you do? Be busy. So one of my ladies, her date would always fly in last minute with his private jet, right? And she told him, I don't like last minute dates. And then he says, who are you to tell me, right? And they do have rosters. She was shocked. She got replaced. She said, I used I statements, right? Because I teach my ladies also to use I statements, very much like Lisa teaches, which is nonviolent communication, which you learn from your psychologist. So you state what you want with an I statement, right? So she said, I don't like anything last minute, I prefer this, right? And it didn't work, because it does not work with affluent gentlemen. Lisa Glamour continues what psychologists say, which works for middle class gentlemen, saying, I feel this, I feel that. Never ever say I feel. That makes you lower status, because you're bothered. And at the top, you also need status to date high status gentlemen. Don't say I feel, unlike what Lisa Glamour tells you to say. The secret of communicating with elite gentlemen is to withdraw. That allows the hunting natural instinct of chasing. Then he'll ask you, he'll approach you and say, hey, is there anything wrong? If he values the relationship at all, he will notice you stopped communicating. Before, you're always bantering and joyful and fun, and all of a sudden, you stop talking. So he'll write, is everything all right? That is when you start talking. Some affluent communication tips. Train your gentleman like a cat. So, what does that mean? I think gentlemen are so much like cats. So, when you give a cat attention when it's doing something naughty, like knocking over something, the cat will do it again. Similar also to toddlers, right? So, how do you train a cat? You pay attention when the cat is doing something you like, right? Let's say your cat is scratching, this beautiful sofa, right? That is antique and has a beautiful history to it. Well, I don't want it to destroy the sofa. So if I say, no, 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 cat, it will do it even more, right? So we don't do that, because it sees that I'm paying attention to it. The cat nature is, oh, that's interesting, let's scratch it more, right? Mm-mm. So, if you want your cat to stop scratching your antique sofa, what do? You get a little cat toy, and you're like, meow, and you distract it, right? And you reward it, and let's say you have a scratching post, you put catnip on the scratching post, and each time it scratches the catnip lady and scratching post, you're like, what a good cat, good kitty, meow meow, what a good sweet kitty, and you pet the cat and all of this, right? So you are excited each time your cat does something correct, and you even give it a treat and you give it attention. When your cat is doing something it shouldn't be doing, take a deep breath and ignore it. When it gets no attention, your cat will eventually stop doing that behavior. Gentlemen are hunters like cats, so you train them in a similar manner. See, provided gentlemen, they pay the bill for the pleasant experience, right? It's not free. And so they expect you to know how to handle conflict in an assertive, elegant, and firm manner. It has to be firm to show that you respect yourself so that they can respect you, but it cannot be shouting and a loss of control. Otherwise, that's low class, and they're paying for a Michelin restaurant, they're paying for an excellent experience, so they want you to reciprocate with elegance, beauty, and assertive, elegant social skills. What do we do about rude behavior? Before any rude behavior starts, we have to put money in the emotion bank by praising him each time he does something correct. He's paying for your dinner, therefore you should praise him, but not, oh my goodness, I've never had a nice dinner before. No, it's like, ooh, this is such an excellent dish. You have such perfect taste. Did you always grow up with perfect taste? How did you acquire it? Did you travel around the world? It's so interesting. So always praise him. Gentlemen pay to be praised by a beautiful lady. So always be rewarding him, right? But don't look like you've never saw food before, right? So it's important that you look like you're used to a good life, but you appreciate his particular exquisite taste, that he took you to lovely places. Oh, this is so elegant. I love how the pianist is playing here. You know, it's so lovely to hear Chopin while we have dinner, etc. Or, you know, I love this particular salmon tartare that I can taste at the end a bit of caramel to the ponzu sauce. It makes it charming, I dare say. So you invest in the positive things already, right? He does something right. Oh, it's so lovely that you walk on the right side of the road. I feel so protected. Always say you feel so protected. Lisa Glamour is correct that you want a man to feel like a hero. So that's how you start it, right? You reward correct behavior. So when he does something incorrect, let's say he calls you 11 o'clock at night. He shouldn't call you past 9, right? If he calls you too late, you don't pick up the phone and you ignore him the next day. You ignore him until he figures out what he did wrong. The problem is if you explain to him, he will feel blamed, he'll feel judged, he'll feel he's not always right, he will feel I spent all this money to have a lovely experience and I feel terrible. Well, that was a poor use of my money. You assert yourself by saying what you enjoy. You don't use comparison to other gentlemen. Lie and gaslight if necessary, okay? At the same time, yeah, that's a social skill. Being on the autism spectrum, I find it rather difficult, but it's important. So that's something I learned. So say that you really love him calling you, whenever you like, right? Let's say between, I absolutely adore being called at 6 to 8. It's so lovely, right? And each time he doesn't, oh, I'm busy, right? Make up excuses. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was busy, right? So each time he does the correct thing, reward him. Once in a while, say what you like, right? In a positive way. Don't judge, don't blame. Let's say he stops calling you every day. What do you say? Say, I love when you call me daily. And then just be very, very quiet. Don't blame, don't nag, don't complain. You've stated, I love when, whatever is important for you. And that's it. And then disappear. And then he's wondering what happened to you, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm busy. Each time he writes to you, like anything wrong. Yes, as I said earlier, I like being called daily, And if I am called daily, I feel like I am a priority. Therefore, you become my priority. In order for me to prioritize someone, they must make me feel equally prioritized. I'm a reciprocal lady. Don't chase him, don't double text him, don't ask him this or that. Never argue with gentlemen, especially if you're not married to them. Nothing positive comes out of it. When you talk to someone, think where you want it to lead, right? Also, if he says something disrespectful, look at him like he has 3 heads, get up and walk away, and make him wonder what he did wrong. Yes, some therapists will say it's toxic, but when you have this look, when you act distant, when you act like, you are upset, there is something wrong, if he cares about you, then he'll ask, and then you can say what you like. Never say you didn't do this or you didn't do that. Rather, simply reward the behavior you want to see. State what you want. Never state what you don't like or what you don't want, or you will get more of it. It is the law of attraction, but also the law of affluent communication. Whatever you say, the universe says, your wish is my command. Okay? So if you want something, say what you want. Always phrase things in what you want. If you're really upset about what you don't want, take a few deep breaths, walk away, do what you need to do to relax and calm down. As Lisa Glamour said, actually, you need to calm down. But once you're calm, you have to rephrase things as what you want in a positive, no blame, no judgmental thing. It should be all about you, right? One of my ladies, once in a while, her fiancé likes to pay for her maintenance, so for her birthday, he paid for Botox but didn't give even a little gift or a rose or any flowers or anything, and she felt so upset. And she wanted to yell at her. She said, what should I say? First of all, I say thank you for the Botox. I really appreciate it. And I enjoy romantic gestures. I love roses. I love also. You remember that on Christmas you also got me the Chanel makeup kit. I really enjoy that so much. Let him be your hero. He'll think, oh, I'll get that too. And praise him. What Lisa Glamour says, to use I feel, doesn't always work. Because if my mentee told her fiancé, I feel really sad that I didn't get a birthday gift in addition to the Botox. It feels so romantic for me to get flowers on my birthday. Remember Christmas, in addition to getting me Botox, you got me a beautiful, entire Chanel makeup kit that was so wonderful, he'll feel that you're unappreciative, entitled, and no matter what he does, it's never good enough, it's never enough, so why should he try? And there are 5 ladies who seem more grateful than you in his Instagram DM, so why not message them for a change? Providers want to feel appreciated, right? So the affluent feminine communication technique, is to always make him feel appreciated, especially, he gave her that, Chanel makeup set, right? That she really loved. He gave her the 4 kits. Oh, how beautiful, how wonderful, how lovely, right? Also, if your friend does something nice for you, you should tell him, wow, my friend Maria did something lovely, okay? My friend Sally did something lovely. It's so important to be appreciative of provided gentlemen. They don't provide for free, they provide to be appreciated, right? So you see here, using I feel might not be effective. Of course, you still use I statements, but you have your standard. I enjoy instead, right? I really feel so grateful that I look my best on my birthday with Botox. I also really remember, how wonderful during Christmas, how, on top of helping me stay beautiful, you had such a romantic gesture. You brought flowers, you brought me this beautiful full, makeup kit of my dreams from Chanel, the most elegant Parisian designer. I felt like Audrey Hepburn. I felt on cloud 9. That was such a beautiful, such a romantic experience, right? So make him want to be your hero. Yes, Lisa Glamour said you want him to be your hero. Yes, this is how, okay? Always reward, even exaggerate anything positive, and also ignore anything you don't want. A secret of elite feminine ladies is they don't go and vent to their gentlemen, because they think with every interaction, what do I get out of this? Where does this action take me? Where does it lead me? Is this action leading me to my best life? If the answer is no, I don't do it. And Lisa Glamour does talk about it. You don't vent, you walk away, and you calm down, okay? So I agree with her on that. Now, next thing, which she doesn't mention, is the power of rapport. So let's say you're really upset at him, okay? You've calmed down. You know what you want to say, but before you'll say it, if you want to get what you want, it works with bosses too. Works at work. What do? So you talk to the person, and if you build rapport, you're more likely to get what you want. What does that mean? It means if you speak like this, you also speak like this, right? If he speaks slowly, you also speak slowly, etc. Kind of match the tone, you match the body language, and so on, so forth, so that, there is a match between you and him. The next thing, when you build rapport, you use the last words of someone's sentence as the first words of yours. In fact, if you do this frequently on dates, he'll be much more interested in you. The next tactic is validation, or telling him that his feelings are valid, right? Especially when he's upset. If you want more on this, on how to get a gentleman addicted to you, I can do another video. The main thing is not to invalidate him. All feelings are valid, okay? What does that mean? Feelings are feelings. They're not facts, they're not actions. If someone feels sad, that's valid. If they feel mad, that's valid. all feelings are valid. Not all reactions and actions are valid, right? Someone hurting you might not be valid, but anyone feeling hurt or feeling happy or whatever the emotion is, all feelings are valid. A lot of the reason why people act out is they feel invalidated. Let's say he tells you something that you don't like. He's like, you are always late, right? What do you say? Do you feel hurt that I am late? Like, how does me being late make you feel? I want to know. All right? Get to the feeling. Like, do you feel that I don't consider your emotion? I want to know how I make you feel so that I can help you, right? You get to the emotion. It's like, you know what? You're feeling neglected because I am late is valid, right? However, I don't always calculate how much time it takes me to do hair and makeup. So I will put my best effort to be exactly on time, but it's important for me to feel confident to look my best. Otherwise, I feel absolutely terrible if I don't look my best. So I completely understand where you are coming from. It feels, it must feel absolutely terrible that I am late. So you try to mirror him and try to repeat to him what he's feeling and say his feelings are valid. And then you can say your own thing. Your feelings are valid and I da 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 da. Whether you want to do something to accommodate or not. Of course, if he's nagging you, saying that you make him feel terrible for not sleeping with him, you could say, if I were a gentleman, I can see where you're coming from. At the same time, I'm a lady. And frankly, I prefer to wait until engagement, right? See, you're asserting yourself, right? It's so powerful to lose a bit of the ego, walk in someone's shoes, try to repeat, what they feel, or try to feel empathy for another person being in their shoes. And then it's so much easier to negotiate. I understand with what happened in the stock market, you want to go to somewhere inexpensive. At the same time, there are very few places that I do enjoy going to in a much lower price range. So we'll have to figure out some compromise. And then prioritize other gentlemen who are able to take care of you and demonstrate that they can be a father to your children in these difficult economic times. An elite secret is assertiveness. So, when I worked for the parliament, there was one assistant who was the most effective and worked there many years. And I asked her, what's your secret to not being swamped with work and always getting ahead and being a chief of staff? How did you do it? And she said, of course, it's assertiveness. And I said, tell me more. So she said, when her boss, on top of all her duties, wants her to finish 3 files in 2 days, many young ladies burn out and they will be a pick-me and do everything, right? Because especially the tone of the boss, right? And she says, no, I didn't do that. So her boss would say, do these 3 files, by the weekend. And she said, you mean today and tomorrow? No, I can only do 1 file. He said, no, do it. She said, okay, I'll pick a file. He said, I pick all 3. He said, you know what? I pick a file. Okay? Then I will choose whichever file and that will be prioritized first. If you don't prioritize which one I will do, then I will simply do 1 file and I'll pick it myself. Either I can choose the file or you can. If you don't pick the file, I will. So then he ended up doing that, right? And he keeps her, and all the pick-me's who try to do everything their boss says. Well, we get swamped with a lot of work, and you cannot do all this work without compromising the quality. Then you get fired for doing a bad job and making him look terrible. She always delivered good, consistent work results. So when she, without arguing, saying, I will do this, she is not afraid to walk away. That's being elite. She has the confidence to walk away. Oh, okay, I will do this. In her head, she's saying, and if you fire me, I know I am good and I will easily find a job tomorrow because you are being unreasonable. And this is the attitude you should have when dating. You should have the attitude that you're enough. And if he's being unreasonable, there will be others, even if you don't see them because you don't know where to look. When you know where to look, there will be the right person, so don't compromise. If he's pushing you to be too intimate too soon, say no. Gentlemen love those ladies who send them to hell if they're inappropriate. Diplomacy is sending people to hell in a way that makes them look forward to the trip. For example, he asks, would you like me to take you home? No, thank you. I enjoy my own transportation. Oh, you're such a prude. I enjoy being a prude. I told you from the beginning I'm a prude. If you don't like prudes, why are you dating me? Ciao. I enjoy is a magic phrase. Can you come over? I'm busy. Why don't you come over? I don't bite. I enjoy visiting gentlemen when I'm engaged or married. Thank you very much. If he's rude after that, just tell him go to hell. Walk away. Gentlemen who want to marry you will not push too much. They'll push a little bit, but they won't be so rude, Like one had a terrible date. He, first of all, was saying, what do you bring to the table? Which she should have said Uber and left, but she sat there. And then he said, nice melons. Are they real? Can I touch? And he just kept nagging. So I told her, as soon as the next come, you leave. No one behaves this way if his intentions are for you to be his wife and live with you for the rest of his life and potentially be the mother of his children. Think of Melania. She would go and walk away. Her gaze is so powerful. Notice how Donald Trump is afraid of her eyes and is afraid of her looking the wrong way. Notice how in the State of the Union, Donald Trump was always praising Melania, and you can smell a little bit of fear. I'm not saying marrying someone like Donald, but we can't deny that Melania is an effective communicator. A favorite affluent communication trick of mine is confusion and empathy. Because you know what? So many people, especially gentlemen, they have egos and they go on defensive, right? And what you do is you don't want them to go on defensive because you argue, they won't listen, so what's the point of arguing, right? The point is to get them to listen to you, okay? And do what you want, right? This will work with your boss, and this will work with your gentleman. So what's the tactic? This affluent secret is confusion and empathy. So let's say your fiancé promised you that he's booking tickets to Italy. Now, if you were dating an affluent gentleman, they would have promised the same thing to a lot of ladies, right? If you're just dating. So if you're not engaged, there's no commitment, right? So they promised it to a lot of people on a rotation, right? But let's say this is your fiancé, right? And you're wondering, it's getting close to the deadline, so what do? You don't say, why haven't you gotten those tickets to Italy that you've promised, blah, blah, blah. You don't do that, right? what do? You say, oh, are you okay? Is everything alright with you? Are you having trouble at work? Is everything okay? And he would say, why? He said, you promised me by this deadline that you'll have our tickets to Italy, and this way I would know whether to book, my trip, to book time off of work, like what I need to do. So let me know, like, is everything okay? Then, oh, well, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah, and he'll, so right, you can use this trick with your roommate. So, are you alright? And the roommate was like, of course I'm right. No, are you okay? Is everything okay at work? Nothing horrible happened? No one died? Are you alright? Of course I'm alright. You promised to take out the rubbish tonight. I was just wondering if you are okay. Otherwise, why, I'm wondering what's going on. Right? See how this works? Of course, then she'll be, oh, yeah. She'll want to be, oh, I'm fine. Right? So she doesn't feel blamed. She does not feel judged. So she's much more inclined to listen and do as you say. So that colleague of yours that didn't deliver something that they promised, and the reality is, right, that people do have problems and things happen, but they don't want to reveal all the problems, why things happen, right? So when you show empathy and some confusion, is everything all right? So is everything okay? They're like, yes. You say you promised to deliver the files by this time, right? And they're not there. So I just hope everything is okay in your life. You know what? People will open up and say, actually, the truth is, I'm not all right. And this happened and that happened. And the next thing is they'll be motivated because you showed them empathy to do what you asked them. Because if you say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Very often, the reason why people are not doing what you asked them is that this happened and that happened, and so many things they didn't account for all happened, and then they felt bad, and then more things happened and they felt more bad, and their brain just shut down, so they're not able to deliver what they promised, right? But if you show them empathy, and confusion and empathy, this will lower the temperature, and they'll say, oh goodness, and they will try to do what you asked them to do because you are showing them empathy. Empathy and validation goes a long way. Let's say he promised to call you at a certain time and he didn't. And then the next day he calls you and asks him, are you alright? And he said, well, what do you mean, are you alright? You promised to call me yesterday. What happened? Are you okay? Is everything alright? Very often something did happen, right? And if nothing happened, he'd still be, oh, I'm so sorry, I will call you the time you want in the future. So this trick works, and it's not because it's a trick, because it's good to show empathy to people because things happen, and successful people wish things didn't happen. Empathy works like magic, and so does confusion and empathy. Please comment below what you found the most interesting in this video. Please like or hate, share and subscribe. Ciao!